Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens right here on the Sound Strategy Network in association with Legacy Gaming. I am Bridger, and today we are going to be talking all about Citizencon. That's right, the big Citizencon event from 2 or 3 weeks ago, and this dropped, not as much news as people had been hoping for, not as much new stuff as people had been hoping for, but that's okay, because it was still technically brilliant. And here to talk with me about that is my good friend Gray. Welcome, Gray. That's not the button. That's the button.
That is not Callie. Yeah, hey, how's it going, Bridger?
As you can see, yes, indeed, Calathulu is not here today. He is just a piece of wall here. He is unfortunately on baby duty this week. So anyway, like I said, we're going to be talking all about CitizenCon and the interesting things that were said there, and the new roadmap, of course, which was revealed during CitizenCon, and plenty of other things going on, and 2.6 coming in the near future, etc., etc. So lots of interesting things with Star Citizen happening. But before we go there, as we always do, I'd like to remind you that we do record every last Sunday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is actually next time it will be Eastern Standard Time because we're switching over next week.
Yeah.
That is how we currently set up, and you can find it on the YouTube channel Sound Strategy Network or on twitch.tv/Bridger15. All the show notes and the MP3 RSS feeds that you can find are on the site. It's talesofshow.com. So, that having been said, email us at feedback@talesofshow.com. Anyway, Life in the Verse is our quick segment where we talk about what's going on with us. Now, Gray, I know what's been going on with you is you were actually physically present at CitizenCon, you jerk. How awesome was it?
I actually got to go. It was great. Good experience. Nice to chat with some of the devs and just sort of hang out. We had a couple other Legacy members who made it as well. It was good to see them. Other than that, it was what I expected. It was a good time. A lot of content. Not exactly as much content as some folks had hoped, particularly with Squadron 42. We'll get to that, I think.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what else have you been doing this past couple of weeks here since the last show?
A lot of work. So other than work, I've been trying to get in a little bit of the Overwatch Halloween event. That's been fun.
Oh, yeah. My wife was very excited. There's a lot of really cool skins and things that came out with that.
I actually got pretty lucky on those, too. I've got a pile of really nice ones, so including Junkenstein. That was kind of my goal in the first place.
I like that one a lot. That one's very
cool. It's a fun mode, though. The survival horror gameplay that you can do with that now is entertaining.
I'm a big fan. We're actually probably going to play some after this. My wife finally got her Logitech headsets crapped out a couple days ago, and she's like, no, I want to get all the cool things from the skins from the Halloween event. So I think they managed
November 1st, you got 2 days.
That's true. We're gonna be playing some later tonight. The thing is, I always decried a lot of the hats that they put into TF2 because I felt like it didn't fit with the aesthetic very well. But for some reason, the Overwatch skins don't bother me. I'm not sure exactly why that is.
There's something about the animation style that's just different.
Yeah.
I don't know. TF2, it feels like as much as it was cartoony, it did have kind of a style to it that didn't necessarily fit with some of the hats.
And maybe it's just because the hats were alone, whereas if you get the entire character's ensemble changed, at least it feels consistent within itself.
Yeah.
Right. Like you got the soldier that's still dressed in his World War II outfit that used to have the helmet, except he's now got a bucket on his head or some other weird thing that doesn't fit with the rest of the outfit. It looks stupid. But I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, recently I have been playing, I don't know if you're familiar with this game, Overcooked.
Overcooked.
Let me pull up a video of it.
I've heard a little bit, but I haven't seen it actually in action.
It's a fun game from I found it on Steam, but it's probably on all of the consoles and things as well. Essentially, you have if you get 4 players together, that's the best ideal situation that you can do, and you've got a bunch of people trying to work together in this little kitchen. Of course, the game throws all kinds of problems in your way. You got to cut this, you got to move it from here, you got to move it to there, and then if you're on a pirate ship, the things will move back and forth, or there's ice, and you have to do this as fast as possible, and then stuff catches on fire, and then you get in the way of each other when you're trying to go from, oh my god, I haven't even seen that level before, but there's an earthquake. The one that
the arcade described as the surefire way to destroy your marriage?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
For some reason, making hamburgers has never been so difficult. And then you can also do a versus mode, which is kind of interesting, but I've been having a lot
That's
of fun
pretty
with that.
funny.
We played that this past weekend, so I was definitely enjoying that. We had some friends over, and we were playing that amongst other things, but that was sort of the highlight of it. I've
So
also
is that
been,
like Steam controllers?
yeah, we all had.
How do you do
So I
four
had a
players?
Steam
Oh,
Link, and
okay,
we just had 4 controllers hooked up to it, so we were just playing it on the couch. But
nice.
I'm almost 100% sure it's also on like the PS4 store and the Xbox store, because it's just a great couch game with your
For all you
friends.
console peasants out there.
Yeah, yeah. Steam Link, PC Master Race, hashtag.
Yep, man.
Yeah, that's what we do. We put the hashtag after it for some reason. No, that's not what I do. So the other things that I've been
Social
doing,
media savvy.
yeah. The other things that I've been playing is Monster of the Week, which is a really fun tabletop RPG. For those of you familiar with alternative tabletop RPGs, I know there's a lot of people out there who've never heard anything except for Dungeons and Dragons and maybe the White Wolf game. But the Monster of the Week is based on another system called Apocalypse World, which is sort of a light system that gives the players a lot of choice and doesn't require a lot of preparation from the DM. And it's designed to be in the genre of Buffy the Vampire Slayer or the Dresden Files or the X Files. It's like a X of the week, whether you've got aliens or you've got zombies or you've got vampires or it could be a curse, and like the players are all part of like a monster hunting team or a monster in paranormal investigation team, right? Something like that. And it's a lot of fun. We fought a Wendigo, which I'd never even heard of before. It's like a Native American
Yep.
boogeyman from like when somebody's left out in the cold to die, they turn into a Wendigo and they hunt
Those
people.
things are scary.
They are.
That's yeah.
So we actually did pretty good on that one. It only got revenge and killed 2 of the 4 people that we were trying to protect. In the first session that we did, there were these weird mummified skeletons of Teutonic knights that had like been brought over as part of a museum exhibit, but something went wrong and they came back to life because they had gone through some ritual to become immortal. And by bringing them over here, we like reawakened them. And so that one, an entire town was zombified before we were able to stop them by burning the whole thing down. So yeah, our track record is spotty. But we're going to try
Just
again
always
soon.
start with kill it with fire.
That's
Step
true,
one.
except one of our members, so one of the character classes is the Monstrous. So you can be like one of the monsters or half monsters that have turned to helping the good side. So like Angel on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? That's the equivalent.
Yep.
So one of us, one of our players decided to be Sasquatch, like a Bigfoot who is helping
Oh my
the team.
God.
And he has this whole like he has to have one big fear, and he made it fear of fire. So when fire turned out to be
Oh, no.
the way to stop the Teutonic Knights of mummified skeleton zombie-ness, he freaked the hell out. So that happened. Anyway,
Nice.
that's a cool game. I recommend it. You can grab a PDF version of it on RPG Drive-Thru. But the other thing that I've been doing
Put that in
recently,
the show notes.
yes, I will put that in the show notes as soon as I finish showing this, because the other thing that I've been doing is some Titanfall. Man,
Ooh.
I don't know. Did you play the original Titanfall?
Very briefly. I think I played it on like a free weekend or something they had early in. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I
That
didn't
seems
find
likely.
myself drawn into it too much.
I think it's really good, especially because we've got this super cool like grappling hook thing now. I feel like Spider-Man sometimes when you
Ooh.
do it right. It's the only other thing I can think of is it kind of reminded me a little bit of Tribes Ascend. Was it Ascend or Vengeance? Do you remember the one that had?
Ascend.
No, I think it was Vengeance
Ascend
actually.
didn't have grappling hooks. Ascend was just outright.
No, Ascend was the
Skiing.
high-res one. I'm thinking of Vengeance. It was the
Yeah.
one that came out to very, very poor reviews in the end. But it had like a Spider-Man style grappling hook that you could do. And I just realized
Nice.
after the fact that I was not recording in 60 FPS when I made this, and now I'm very sad. But anyway, the grappling hook thing is really, really cool. And I can't imagine, like, it's one of the upgrades you can have in that slot, and there's so many other cool upgrades, but I can't imagine not having the ability to just, like, to get out of dodge by, like, grappling up to a corner and swinging around it to gain a lot of momentum and get away. I've used it so many times to, like, jump on top of an enemy Titan, steal their battery, and then as they turn around to try and punch me in midair, I'm just like, whoop, 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 whoop. So that's a lot of fun. This game mode too, the bounty hunt game mode. I know that a lot of people tried it in the tech test, but they didn't have one of those for PC. Those jerks. the bounty hunt style is really interesting. You've got these like essentially minions. Oh, that's a player though. There's minions that drop down into a drop zone. That's what all these little grunts and things are that
Oh
I'm
yeah, yeah,
shooting.
yeah.
Right
That's the
now,
standard sort of MOBA style thing they had in the first one too.
yeah, but this is like those minions can be killed by both teams and
Huh.
you get money. So I've got money showing off there. Oh, and then I died and I lost half my money
So you
because I
actually
died.
both teams are killing the same minions now.
Yeah, so when you kill them, you earn money. When you kill enemy players, you earn money, and then you half the money you earn immediately goes into your team's bank, which you can see at the top of the screen, the score, right? That's just
Yeah,
plain
yeah.
points. The other half you carry with you, like I just said, I went from 17 to 8. You have to bank that at specific locations, and both teams have to bank it at the same 2 locations, and the banks only open at certain times. You have a wave where a bunch of those grunts will come by, and you try to get a bunch of points by killing them all and other players, and then you try to hold on to your money, because if you die,
Huh.
whoever kills you gets some of the bounty that you lost. And then the banks
Gotcha.
open, and everybody makes a run for the bank to try to deposit the money for their team. It's a really fun objective. I thought it was going to be just a little bit better, like just a little bit more of an objective than basic team deathmatch, but it adds a lot to it. Oh, this is where I chased this guy down, and I don't think I got him. I think I was very disappointed with my performance at the end. Oh no, I killed him just barely.
Nicely done.
And so yeah, I've been enjoying the hell out of this game and the game mode. The one thing, they made exactly the same mistake they made in the first game, and I can't believe they did it. They had such a problem in the first game very shortly after release with number of players playing the game, at least on PC. I know on console they had a better time, but the problem they had is they wound up splitting the community very heavily between all these different game modes that were possible. And many of these other companies have
Huh.
figured out, oh well, you need to make sure that you're not only going to have a queue for
Ooh.
I missed and got fried. So you're only going to have a queue for so many different types of game modes. And then you'll have a rotating like new game mode of the month or what have you. Like that's what Left 4 Dead used to do. And instead this has more than 8 different queues for game types. And so
That's not ideal.
and 2 of them are like hidden on a separate, like you almost can't notice that there's a completely second menu of game modes. So the variety pack queue isn't just a hey, put me in a queue for whatever, I don't care. It's its own separate queue for a random thing. And it's like it could have been done so much better, and I hope it is fixed, because right now the only queues that actually get picked are like attrition, bounty hunt, and hardpoint, and even then hardpoint seems to take a little while to get. But there's like a few other different game modes that don't get played because
Yeah,
there's not enough people playing them. It splits the community too
that's
much.
back to the League of Legends sort of style thing. You have 1 or 2 primary game modes at most, and then everything else needs to be a rotator that people beg to play, not
Yes.
one that has a queue of 10 people once a week.
Right. And I feel like that would be I love punching grunts with a big giant mech. It's awesome. So anyway, enough about this. It's a Star Citizen show. Let's talk about Star Citizen. But I've just been so excited about this game, and now I want to go play it again. But anyway,
That's pretty cool.
that having been said, I recommend it. Plus, there is a single player campaign that I started that's been pretty good, and the first game missed that completely. And the single player campaign has been getting very good reviews from the places that I've seen. I'm only about 25-30 minutes in myself because I just wanted to jump into multiplayer, but I plan to go back and try it out based on the results
Nice.
of the other reviews. Okay, so that's that. So send us new show ideas or questions you have about Star Citizen to feedback@talesofshow.com. Let's go right into the Citizencon discussion. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
Gray was there. We're going to get a frontline report. Gray, what happened at we all watched the actual presentation from afar, and we'll talk
Yes.
about the full presentation in a bit, but was there anything special that happened while you were there personally?
There was a lot of energy in that room, and there was a lot of murmuring as well about the fact that there wasn't Squadron 42 shown. That was not angry murmuring, I have to be clear. When they started talking about their reasoning for it, there was, at least at that location, a lot of understanding of why that would happen. It's pretty clear that a lot of folks would rather have seen, at least from the internet, I can't say in that room, but from the internet, a lot of folks would rather have seen an incomplete Squadron 42 first mission or first chapter, or whatever you want to call it. There's a link in our our show notes here that's talking about someone who said, well, it wasn't that great. It wasn't the show that they had wanted to see. And they have this sentiment that CIG should not be holding things back for polish on Squadron 42. I have to really vehemently disagree with that. I think now is exactly the time that CIG should be holding back Squadron 42 content before the cat gets out of the bag, or they're really going to damage the game's long-term reputation. This is supposed to be a game with high fidelity. This is supposed to be a
Oh,
game
that's a drinking
where
game. Whenever you're talking about Star Citizen, if somebody says fidelity, you got to take a shot.
I had took a few drinks at Citizencon. Regardless, this is not a situation where CIG should rush it. If they show their first mission and the first mission has people clipping their arms through walls or AI that's incapable of putting on a convincing show, you're going to have a bad situation compared to basically any other situation the company could put itself in. If they delay the game, people will be angry the game isn't out yet. But I can guarantee if the game comes out and it looks good, people will buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually surprised. I was watching the Road to Citizencon video that they put out later on,
Oh yeah,
like a week or so after, and I was surprised they had planned to show like the entire first chapter at Citizencon. To me, that's like spoilers. Like, I want to play that. I don't want to watch it. I would totally be okay with them showing off like 5 or 10 minutes of it, or just like the intro piece or whatever. But they were going to show off the entire first chapter, and I'm like, that's not something I want to see as part of the presentation. Show a little highlight of this or whatever, and then say, hey, it's coming out in a month or two. We're getting really good. This gives you an idea. It's weird that they would have done that.
well, I mean, doing a whole playthrough of the first chapter, as long as it really is an introduction to the rest of the game, which with good storytelling it should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay for them to show that entire thing and say, hey, for people who are interested in avoiding spoilers, don't watch this,
Sure,
or whatever it happens to be. But the idea of them taking the full chapter to production ready, launch ready content is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
At least at that point they can say, this really is what we are building. This is our goal. This is our level of completeness for you to see. I think that there's a lot to be said in an alpha process for players getting to test what's in the works and see what's in the works. I still maintain that doesn't really apply to the single player game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's irresponsible of them to show off that campaign until it's ready. And if that means we have to wait 6 months, we have to wait 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, the other important thing to remember with regards to that polish is while you're polishing that first chapter to completion, it will hopefully give you a good timetable of how long the other chapters will take. You're like, well, we started chapter 1 going all the way to release ready status, and it took us X, months or weeks or whatever. Then chapter 2 is slightly more complex. We can tweak it a little bit or whatever, but then you get a decent idea of, and theoretically, the problems you have bringing the first chapter to completion will solve a lot of the problems that the other chapters would have had. You're going to find a ton of bugs in that first chapter because it's the first time you run into every single one of those bugs. It's like, oh, it turns out when we add all the skins to the bangle, this one's clipping through here and that one's clipping through there. But then when you do chapter 2, those are all fixed. So
it's true.
But because this is how the game development or software development works, if it takes, let's say, 5 or let's say just 10 months to go from gray box to completion on chapter 1 of Squadron 42, even though that will have hopefully squared off a lot of things you won't have to do in chapter 2, give another 10-month window for chapter 2. Just do that anyway, and we'll probably all be happier. Let's find out.
Yeah. And we're going to have to see what a chapter actually means. Is this going to be a situation where their big fight, I think they were saying it was AI and just the mission system and that kind of thing they're working on right now. Those are a really big hurdle. And saying, okay, those things are actually ready to go out the door for the single player game, it's something you shouldn't have to revisit in the future, which is good. And we know that, they know that. It sucks to have to wait, but it's a big single player title. And even separating it completely from the rest of Star Citizen as a multiplayer title, this specifically needs to be done right. Multiplayer can have some weird bugs and people write it off because MMOs have bugs. This has weird bugs, you got a problem.
Yeah, so overall, the main complaint that I saw, aside from the why didn't we get to see more about Squadron 42, whatever, was they spent like an hour just going over, how they got there. Right? Chris was up there for like 20 minutes showing a timeline and then trying to figure out why the PowerPoint wasn't working. By the way, I had like cringe moments there because like 80% of my job involves getting people's projected presentation on screens to work right. So every time you clicked and it didn't work, I'm having
Yeah.
like Vietnam level flashbacks to times when I've been in the room and something's gone wrong and I'm like, "Oh crap. What do I do?" Like I'm the tech in the back of the room and their thing isn't working and I'm like Jared in the corner there, right? So I'm like, "Oh
Red
god,
one.
what do I
Red
do?"
one.
Okay, I can radio somebody to get a new one. No, maybe I manually advance it for him and then like I've actually got away with doing that and they didn't know. They just thought it was slow because I was waiting for them to click it. Anyway, that's besides the point. So the whole presentation, the beginning there did have a lot of like, for the people who have been backers for a long time, it was just like, yawn, yes, we know. We've seen all this before. If we've watched Around the Verse, we've seen pieces of this kind of presentation before. Who do you think that whole section there was for exactly?
You mean the section with the
Was it?
Planet 2.0?
No. Sorry, the first section where they were just doing sort of a recap of how we got where we are.
It was a combination. Some of it was for new backers. There's a lot of folks that I've talked to, even very recently, who just don't have that history. In the last year, a lot of people have joined up after seeing the Port Olisar demo, Crusader 1 or Patch 2.0. A lot of folks bought in, and they don't have the time or the motivation to go back through however many years of history. CIG needs to have some kind of recap for those players. And at the same time, there are going to be new players that are sucked in by the planetary demo or that are sucked in by any variety of gifts that are going to show up on, Reddit all had a thing with sunsets from the last
Mm-hmm.
ATV that made the front page. Um, Players who see that and go watch a presentation like this because, hey, that looks like a big thing that should matter, need to know where this project came from. They need to know exactly how long it's been. And it's been a while. And having that knowledge when you walk in as a new backer is actually valuable. This isn't the game that you're going to be playing at full release in 6 months.
Mm-hmm. I definitely can see that. If I was a new backer, that was all very valuable. Well, not necessarily valuable. It was probably enjoyable information to see how far the game has come, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I certainly share the frustration of people that are just like, man, I tuned in to see
Well,
new and interesting things, and there's nothing here for that. So that's
I,
it is what it
I'd like
is.
to make an argument that if you're tuning in to see nothing but something new and interesting, you wanted a bigger version of ATV.
Yeah, but that's historically
I
that's
mean,
kind of been where we get all the new stuff. I mean, Arena Commander was shown off for the
oh yeah,
first time at PAX East. You and I were there for that one, and then we saw the
I
first
I'm
procedural
not arguing
generation of
that there shouldn't be
Gamescom.
anything new. I'm just arguing that the segment that was made that was the history
Hmm.
was necessary for the new backers and necessary for people who were just tuning in to see what the game was about. Get to other parts of the presentation and maybe we have a different conversation about that. But this part of the presentation, I think with the scale Star Citizen is at now, they need to make sure that that information is out there during big presentations before they start diving into the big fancy, hey, here's a planet stuff.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, so let's hop over to the next piece here. So at the very beginning, though, they did have like an "I am a Star Citizen." Like it felt like a recruiting video, and at the end of it, like it was a very interesting sort of thing, looking at all the different people and talking about what they've done with Star Citizen. And then at the end, when they all said "I am a Star Citizen," it definitely felt like a recruiting video for like a military force. Like it felt like the army was telling me, "Be all you can be. Join the Star Citizen." citizens. But
It was definitely a commercial, no question about that.
and then we did have that advertisement to buy more ships. Like that was, I did read some people that were
Oh yeah, yeah,
disconcerted
yeah.
by that. That bothered me a little
The
bit
UAE
too.
thing.
Yeah, the militia
Well,
something mobilization movement or whatever they called it. But I saw that. I was like, oh, we're gonna see, like, is this a piece of like the opening from Squadron 42, like just like the Admiral Bishop speech, and then it switches over to and now we're going to release new ships for you to buy, and I'm like,
I mean,
oh,
it was a
okay,
Polaris commercial.
it was. It was a little bit.
I mean, really, it was a Polaris commercial.
Not to the same awesome degree as some of those other commercials, though. We haven't seen one of those in a long time.
But at the same time, could you do the same sort of thing with a Polaris that you did with the Cutlass? I mean, you don't really have a Polaris captain going backwards through a bunch of Vandal, throwing him the bird.
No.
You could potentially do something that's like a big combat scene with a whole bunch of people fighting or that kind of thing. I think the way that they chose to address this was actually appropriate for what the subject matter was, because the entire idea is that this is only a militia vessel.
Right.
Now, say what you will about
meaning a larger organization, not individuals for the most part.
yes. And say what you will about them choosing to do everything in lore and say, oh, yeah, you as a militia need one of these ships, or you need to do these sorts of patrols on smaller military craft that we're making available. Yeah, if you're going into any of these ship commercials trying to take what you're seeing literally, you're going to have a bad time.
Well, yes. Yes. And, it just occurred to me, like, we haven't seen... What was the last one? It wasn't the Freelancer.
Cutlass.
The Cutlass? Really? The Cutlass?
I think it was the Cutlass.
No, I think the Freelancer came after the
No,
Cutlass.
it was the Consolidated Outland. It was the Mustang.
That's right, the Mustang. But that's got to have been over a year ago. I have to imagine the reason for that is because the team that put those together has probably been working really hard on cutscenes for Squadron 42. That's got to be the case, right?
Actual modeling work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that they did this with the Polaris for Citizencon just so they could have a special little segment.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it, I would add, in a way that doesn't appear to have taken quite the level of resources that you would have needed for the Cutlass or the Outland or, Freelance or any of that.
Mm-hmm. Whoops. So the next piece of this, after the little, trip down memory lane, was Spectrum, which I was watching Wash from Firefly. What's that actor's name? I'm completely blanking on it now.
I'm missing it too. I'm terrible with names.
Damn it. His Indiegogo campaign for his show, Con Man. And in that show, they have their own thing called Spectrum, which was their equivalent of Firefly. Alan Tudyk. Yes. Yep. Damn it. I can't believe I forgot him. He's awesome, by the way. He's in so many things as voices. He was Captain Candy in Wreck-It Ralph and a bunch of other places. You just wouldn't think it was him, and he's awesome. Anyway, so I was watching Con Man, and in that show they have a show called Spectrum. So every time I see it in Star Citizen in this presentation, it just in my head I'm hearing Spectrum the same way it was in that show. So that's a weird aside that had no business being on this show. So let's move on. So they showed off the new integration of what I would consider sort of organizations like 2.0 or 3.0 wherever they're at, which is their whole community integrated piece. It's not going to replace the community hub, which is for media that you find about the game. This is for actual game-related chat and communication.
Which, by the way, really cool feature of this, the idea that there are localized chats from Spectrum that you'll have access to effectively offline. So if I'm sitting in Area 18 with my character parked there, I'll have the ability to read general chat, more than likely, for Area 18 on my phone or in my browser.
Really? I didn't get that idea. That's interesting. Oh, so when your character would still technically be in that area, you mean? So your phone would still allow you to read what is going on there?
Yep. They're saying that basically the idea behind Spectrum, and there's a lot of talk about how it duplicates a lot of Discord and that kind of thing, which is true. But it also is intended to set it up so you could actually have crossover between Spectrum on your phone or in your browser with Star Citizen in-game.
Yeah. And I definitely like the interface. It's very slick. I want to like point at it, and it's just a YouTube video, so I can't click anything. But it's a very nice interface. It's got good contrast, and I love the idea that they've put the bookmarking feature on the left, and you can bookmark anything. Like you can bookmark a thread, you can bookmark a chat, you can bookmark like a voice comm area. Like the whole thing has a very
that is really handy.
Yeah, and the fact that they finally got a more modern forum set up where you can easily like reply in line with things and just it's very, very nice because I've always felt that I use a lot of forums and I know what I like in a forum and I like what they're doing here is what it comes down to. I like that they have sort of a unified notification panel there in the top right, and the voting is interesting because one of the slides I did specifically read said that in the sort of standard chat, the voting would not affect ranking, which raises the question, why is the voting there? But I think the real reason the voting is there is because it helps eliminate replies that are essentially either 2 or 3 words with the equivalent meaning of I agree. Right? Those are poison to a forum that has a ton of people. The more people you have that reply and all they say is totally agree, bro, or something like that, it's essentially spam, right? +1, those are essentially spam, and it makes the entire forum think that you have to filter out and slide past this, slide past that. What a lot of people in the modding community call low effort posts. And in fact, that's why some forums have, minimum number of characters that you are required. But having the ability to just +1 somebody on a vote means that you hopefully will be less likely to reply with something super weak and only reply if you have something to add specifically that can add to the conversation. So I hope that's the case. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. Theoretically, and I hope that's the case too, you can sort later by, most votes in a given time. Like you can say, oh, what's the most upvoted post in March of 2016 or 2017 or whatever. And you can sort of go back month by month and see what were people talking about in this month that were really big issues. That would be a cool little time capsule, I guess, to see.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really cool options for them to say what's popular, what's useful, and go from there.
The only thing I feel like it's missing is they showed off how the forum is basically infinite scrolling or what have you earlier on. Let me back up a little bit here because they're about to leave it. But they did show that the forum has like an infinite scroll rather than going from page to page. It just sort of auto loads the pagination at the bottom as you keep scrolling. Yep. The problem is I can't get enough of how awesome Reddit threading is in comments, and I wish they'd implemented that as a system instead of just an infinite scroll, because there are too many situations in which you get large threads that have literally hundreds or thousands of posts. So you go there, and unless you are like the first guy to reply, then you're going to be on the 3rd page, and so many people are replying that now it's like 6 pages long, and people that are posting now don't realize that their point that they are making has already been made on page 2 and 4, but instead of replying to those, they are making it again because nobody wants to read through 5 pages before they decide if they're going to post. So
I think Reddit has the same problem, though.
Yes
People
and
are going to
no,
read
but
the
at
top
least
2 comments that are highly voted, and they'll directly respond to those. They won't scroll down to the bottom of the page.
No, but the benefit there is that if there are multiple things posted, then the multiple copies that are less well said get sorted to the bottom. And I don't scroll down a lot. I'll like read a comment and then I click the collapse button so I can see the next comment, unless I want to follow the chain. That's how I use it.
Keep in mind, Reddit also doesn't automatically paginate. They have a load more comments button that says, oh, there's 40 more replies you haven't seen here that people won't see at all.
Well, I have the Reddit, the RES extension for Chrome, so mine does just auto loading as I scroll. So it's more like it's more like Spectrum, actually.
Sure, but you've added an extension for Chrome. So what you're saying is you really like the extension for Chrome, not necessarily you like the way Reddit does it on its own. Because I'm looking at this thing now, and it said, oh, load 40 more comments. And I clicked it, and now it says, oh, load more comments. There's 20 more replies. You don't even see them until you click the button.
Well, right. I mean, the more comments you're talking about in an individual thread, usually it only hides comments that don't reach a certain level of upvotes. So if the comment if a comment chain is upvoted enough, they'll all be immediately visible. But you're right. But that also allows you to easily pick, like, do I want to see more about
And
what this guy said? Do I want to see the conversation about that, or just scroll down to the next conversation and see what they're talking about? Because you can have like 7 or 8 or 10 different conversations going after an original poster, right? He makes a post about something. Somebody else picks a bone with point 1. Somebody else picks a bone with point 2. Somebody else says, this reminds me of another thing. By the way, did you guys blah, 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 blah. And so you have this giant thread that's a single lane from top to bottom, except there's 6 different interleaved conversations happening, and it's very difficult to follow without proper threading. And if there was one thing I wish they had a Reddit voting threading system. But you know what? Asking for that is like, can't you just spend a few years developing what wound up being the best forum system on the internet that's taken years and years to get to where it is today? So maybe I'm asking for a little too much.
Can you just wildly copy that and hope you're not breaking a copyright law?
Or just, you can, in having not seen the algorithm that creates that thing, just make it up on the back end.
Make it up as you go along. See what happens.
It's not enough that they basically rebuilt Discord for all intents and purposes, and then bolted on a better forum system to it. So that I was damn impressed with it overall, and yet disappointed because we just moved over to Discord as a community, and now we're gonna have to move off of Discord onto this thing. Theoretically, I don't know if we're gonna, how deeply we're gonna jump into it, but certainly by the time the game is out,
when the game's out, we'll be on this thing.
Yeah, the tools available to being able to discuss with people who are in game, who can use the overlay to easily respond to things. That is going to be too valuable to stay on Discord for.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
yeah. It looks like they really did hit it out of the park with their current iteration of this. So long as it launches the way that they talked about it, this is big. And actually, they could start testing it with things as simple as, like, hey, the local zone chat around Port Olisar, and let people, check into that.
And I was definitely impressed because so many companies will make an in-game voice. I mean, it's common in everything. It's in Titanfall, it's in Battlefield, it's in whatever. But many of those, like he mentioned, if something goes wrong and the game crashes or whatever, then you lose contact with those people. And the fact that it's actually an out-of-game tool that hooks into the game as well means that, you can have friends who aren't in-game at this very moment hop into a voice channel where you are while you're in-game and say, hey, do you guys mind if I come in? I've got a mining vessel I can... Oh my god, we need your help! Get in here right now! There's pirates! Okay, sure, no problem. That can happen, whereas if it's only in-game, I'd have to boot up the game and then see what voice channels are available and then jump into one to talk to someone. But the fact that you can jump into it out of game, there's so much more utility there, it's hard to even express it.
Yeah, we have Symbiotic Technique asking in YouTube chat, do we have any clue about the VoIP features with support in OpsNet? It's likely that they'll see at least basic channel functionality. People can create their own voice channels and assign who can go into it and that kind of thing. I don't know anything yet about operations in that where you flag somebody and when they hit, one button, it talks to 6 channels or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. It's likely that is not going to be available in the foreseeable future. If enough people ask for it, basically, they seem to be dedicated to building like the best damn game chat community system ever. And
it's possible that really, really hardcore operational stuff will still have to happen on a system like TeamSpeak, where all they do is voice over IP.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, it'll mean that small group things are going to be easy to organize and easy to work with.
Now, they did mention spatialized, and I Googled that term, and Google was like, did you mean specialized? And I'm like, no, I meant spatialized. Spatialized. It's not really a word. I think that's kind of just sort of an emergent thing or made-up word for the thing that we don't have a name for, which is the ability for games, and I've seen other games do this. Wasn't it the open source one, the Raid Call or something like that? Mumble does this. It hooks into games positioning, and so if you're in a raid and somebody in front of you asks for heals, or to your left or whatever, it can make it so that you can hear it more out of the left ear, so it can kind of, how the games can make the sounds come from the left front or the right front, even if they're still only stereo. it will do the same thing for your friends' voices based on their relative position to you within the game. And that's at first what I thought it might be. But then that makes no sense if you're in a ship using a voice communication thing. And then I thought maybe what they mean, and he kind of mentioned it, was when you're in like a hallway and your friend is in the same hallway and you're talking, it sounds like you're in a hallway. When you're outside in spacesuits, it sounds like you're outside in spacesuits. Maybe that's what he's talking about. What do you think?
Maybe. It could also actually be something to actually do with FPS and that kind of thing. If you're talking about VoIP where anybody can use this thing, there's the possibility of saying, hey, we're going to have that Splinter Cell, where it was you could hear, or the guards could hear you talk.
Right.
There's the possibility that you could say, hey, I want to be able to public channel, open up a comm, and try to talk to anybody who's nearby. Or I want to public, voice, walk into a hallway and say, hello, is anybody in this room?
So you're talking about it's a localized chat rather than
which is spatialized.
Right. Okay. That's what it means. Okay.
If you want to walk up to a door and say, hey, I'm a friendly coming in, don't shoot, either you could type that in general chat, which I think will still be a common thing, or you could actually say, hey, I'm coming in, don't shoot, and the person will hear you and go, oh, maybe I'll shoot them in the face.
Yeah.
And so the great circle of life continues. But I think
that is something.
The
only other place I've seen that in was PlanetSide. Can you think of another game that they've had that sort of 3D spatialized thing built in?
Not really.
Local. I guess I think they called it local voice when you were using it there.
And PlanetSide definitely did that relatively well. I think that they could definitely see use for that in Star Citizen, given large populations and the current culture of kill on sight when you run into another player.
I mean, just imagine all the really cool stuff you could do if third-party voice systems didn't exist. If everybody had to use the system that Star Citizen has. I mean, you could use electronic warfare to jam the comms, and so you would literally hear like static coming over when your commander's trying to give you orders, or the radar operator's trying to tell you which direction they're coming in from or whatever. It's like, and they're coming, they're up, look out, there's a javelin. And just that would be so freaking cool. But you can't do that because if you did, everybody would just switch to TeamSpeak and to get around it.
If you look at things like PlanetSide 2, a lot of groups ended up still using things like TeamSpeak or whatever Mumble or whatever VoIP choice they could make, because you were still limited by the number of people you could have in a chat channel, for platoons or anything else. But even with those third-party apps in place, everybody still had the first-person voice on.
Yes.
Very few people would mute it. And I think that's the goal here in Star Citizen. Competitive orgs still won't use that to organize everything. But for quick little mission systems and for walking down a hallway, it's awesome.
Right,
it's
and as you pointed out, to communicate with somebody who's not on your voice communications channel. If you wanted to talk to, there's a hull C coming through a jump gate, and you want to say, what's on the other side of that jump gate? You just came through. Is there an ambush waiting for us or whatever? Then you have to open up a channel, and that's probably going to be going through either the text or the voice of the in-game system. So you're right. There certainly is going to be the third-party systems being used for organizations having their own groups, but you have to still have that system, and having it as a voice system. I'm trying to think. An MMO with a voice system to be used like that, aside from PlanetSide kind of, but PlanetSide isn't really count because it's, you use local, but you didn't use it to yell at your opponents, really. You did it to yell at your local team people. So,
you could hypothetically use to yell at your opponents, except in PlanetSide, you know exactly where that would have gone.
Yeah.
There's a reason they didn't turn that on.
Hey, screw you. Yeah, it is weird that you can't hear your opponents. Anyway, so we'll see a lot more of that in the near future. They mentioned could be coming in the next couple of months. I think they said they wanted to get it out by the end of the year, but that's a dangerous thing to say, of course. That tanks it automatically.
A first draft, even without all the big features, could be out this year. It sounds like Turbulent's doing a pretty solid job of getting that up and running.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to see the full feature set this year. And anybody who thinks we'd
Sure.
see, like in-game, out-of-game voice integration by patch 3.0 is probably on crack.
Yeah, where did they
That's a huge
say?
hurdle to
They said the new launcher was going to launch with, was it 3.0? Was that where Spectrum was going to get integrated, or was it?
something like that. My memory's failing me right
It's
now.
definitely not 2.6. We might see
No.
Spectrum like the new forum interface, the new chat interface. That probably will show up by the end of the year or January. But the integrated patcher that
Yeah.
they're talking about, the brand new patcher that hopefully won't make us re-download 2 gigabytes worth of data when they patch things, that'll be coming later on. I think it's a 3.0 feature, but we'll see. I don't think they were
Yep.
super specific about that. So moving on, the next piece they talked about was Squadron 42 and currently what they plan to have, and they sort of went over a bunch of stats. It's going to have 28 chapters equivalent to 60 some odd missions. It's going to have an A-list cast to match a movie. It's 340 speaking roles, 24 hours performance, story arc on 12,014 pages, 450 stick deck, etc., etc., etc. And then that's all well and good, but it doesn't replace what people wanted here. But let's take a look at this real quick. 28 chapters equivalent to 60 plus missions. Presumably some of this is 60 missions, meaning, does that mean there's multiple missions per chapter or multiple
Looks like
possible
about
missions per chapter that you can branch out?
it looks like it's going to be 2+ missions per chapter. It's likely that what they're probably going to do is say a particular chapter would have long missions. So a mission would have multiple objectives, multiple sub-objectives. Think big time, some of the big time Wing Commander 3 kind of missions that went for a while. And then between those missions, within those chapters, you'd have opportunities to interact with other NPCs, try to move the story along in other ways, you name it. And then you'd probably get sent out on another mission. That would allow them to break the game up into the system where you could have major events very easily put together for the sake of writing the story and for the sake of controlling when NPCs enter and exit the game.
Yeah, the main, I still think it's going to be like 28 actual missions, but with bunches of branching possibilities. So when you get to mission X, you could go left or go right. When you get to this mission, you could decide how you want to, do you want to chase down the Vandal and get revenge, or do you want to investigate the such and such that they left behind? I think that's what they're referring to here. Because otherwise, what's the point of a chapter if
to
it
make
doesn't?
you land on the ship repeatedly and or to
Yeah,
transfer
maybe.
you between sectors or planets.
Certainly possible.
Because then they can throw you on a ship and say, we're going to put you in quantum drive for a while until you land at this other place. Between missions, you have this opportunity for social interaction that could be time boxed, or it could be something where you just go until you choose to launch your ship.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that. All right, let me see what came next after the bit of Squadron 42 info here. We had 2.6 info. That's right. Yes, we had 2.6 info along with information about what's coming with 2.6 being Arena Commander and updates and Star Marine updates. So let's pull that up here. Boom. We had our progress report for 2.6 that's giving us essentially, what we're going to see here. Star Marine, which everybody's clamoring about, Arena Commander, which is going to get some updates, lobby and leaderboards totally refactored. I know that we have had an issue with the way that leaderboards were set up for a long time, so
Well,
that's
I
certainly
don't
good to
think
see.
that this will change
No?
that. For those who need a little background here, Legacy has a mandatory opt-out of the leaderboards. We had some serious issues with some less social members of the community causing problems, and basically we told our pilots, you can fly in Arena Commander all you want, you can fight people all you want, but we're not in this for fake internet points right now.
Especially when the
Um,
internet points are so poorly calculated.
exactly. And it's just leading to bad practice all across the board. If you want to climb the leaderboard, in effect, you're going to do things that are incredibly stupid. in the long term when you look at how the game is going to need to be played. So when you take a look at um, this idea of like, oh, we're going to change leaderboards, I'm not too excited about that. Not until they have the full systems in play. Lobbies, though, I am interested to see them up lobbies a bit. The current system's a little bit clunky. I'm sure they could go a little bit further on that.
So I love the idea of persistent missiles being a
Yeah,
thing, where
yeah,
you know if your ship gets blown up, you don't just magically get new missiles. That will help make
a
the
lot.
arena commander experience a lot more like the persistent universe experience, where your missiles are a very valuable commodity and you only have a few of them, so using them at the right time is important.
Yes.
And that is an important piece that's been super different between what arena commander is and what the persistent universe has been. Other than that, they're obviously fairly similar in combat style, so I'm very very happy to see that. And the fact that you still have
Yeah.
the ability to get reloads, because it's an arena commander, it's not a real life simulator. You can have power ups and reloads in it, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
makes it a better gaming experience. Because remember, this is created by Original Systems.
And
It's a simulation. It's not
and by
real
the
life
way,
like Star Citizen.
finally, I have to throw that out there. Finally, they're trying to say, okay, Arena Commander is going to have a little more gamification to it to separate it from the PU.
Yeah, and I'm totally okay with that. I mean, they had things that made it like, they had capture the flag mechanics and things like that, but they always tried to make it look realistic-ish, and I'm no problem with that. But you can make more gamey things in Arena Commander because it is designed to be a game within a game. The
Yes.
real with the parent game trying to be as simulative as possible and immersive as possible, but Arena Commander can have those things, which is
Well,
gives you a lot more options.
and I get that there should be a place in Arena Commander that it can feel like you're on, a 10 by 10 kilometer block in Crusader just shooting at people, but I'd really prefer Arena Commander to have modes that aren't just the same as the PU, but on a tiny scale where you shoot at each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can do things like capture the area, right? You can do things that don't make any sense in a real life perspective. I'm still waiting for, even though it's more realistic, I'm still waiting for like the capture the Idris that they promised a while ago, where you have to like, secure an Idris from the outside, then send in your boarding party and capture it. Like, man, that sounds awesome. Like from as an arena commander, objective based game mode, like who can hold the Idris for as long as possible, as like maybe 32 plus versus 32 or something like that. They have to get up to big enough numbers, but you have like half of your group is pilots who are trying to destroy enemy assault craft, and then you have half of your team is like essentially infantry and assault craft trying to board. That's kind of a cool concept, and it reminds
It
me
is.
of that Allegiance. Was that the one? Do you remember Allegiance? Allegiance was a
Uh,
Microsoft game from the late 90s that was
it's
very
ringing a
similar to
bell.
that concept. You can still play it because this is one of the few games that when they stopped supporting the servers, they just released the code to the community. You can still play it. Let me see if we can find the website to put in the show notes here. Free space combat game, freeallegiance.org. It really looks a lot like the old what you call it, freelancer and wing commander style games. But the crux of this was this amazing cooperation where a lot of it was the different fighter craft and things, but you had to like capture these space stations and stuff. I barely remember it, but I remember it being a freaking amazing thing. And it has a similar concept to multiple roles involved in this larger objective based combat system, where you have to have some people as pilots escorting and other people's as this and other people's as that, and it had like an RTS thing too. If you see here, they had like different techs and expansion. I'd love to see something like this in Star Citizen. If they could just take this concept, it'd be freaking amazing. Anyway, I may be misremembering a different thing and bolting it onto here, but Free Allegiance, or Allegiance was an awesome game regardless, because I have some fond memories of that game. But
Nice.
be that as it may, side trip over. So we're going to see some new stuff from Arena Commander. We're going to see Star Marine for the first time, of course, and we did see some of this at the Gamescom presentation, but they gave a little bit more detail. There's going to be a 4v4 map mode and a 12v12 map mode. 12v12 is a good number to get started here. It means that they can definitely put 24 people in a game fairly smoothly. That's good, because we're hoping that we get a lot higher than that eventually. Deathmatch and control objective modes, I'm definitely happy to see that. Deathmatch, I don't know. It's never been enough for me. I always want something more than just kill the other team, because that results in, the most optimal way to kill them is wait for them to come to you, and then both sides sit there and camp.
Well, and they've been talking too about the whole idea that they needed a better lobby system, specifically because people are going to be entering and leaving lobbies frequently. And that means people are going to, potentially in some of these deathmatch modes, get shot once, die, and be done.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So more like a Counter-Strike style than...
You could see Counter-Strike style things with this. And I think that will potentially give deathmatch a little bit more of an edge compared to normal. Because I'm with you. When you're talking like the Unreal Tournament style or Tribes, where you die, you respawn, you die again. I live, I die, I live again. You can have a situation where it just gets grindy. Why am I playing deathmatch? Because I want to shoot people 10 times. Okay, why do I want to shoot people 10 times? I could shoot them 10 more times.
And there is some people that really like that just want the release of just constant combat, no stopping.
It's true. But if Star Citizen tries to make that its primary kind of deathmatch, it will lose to the other titles. There are established franchises that are very, very good at the die and respawn deathmatch game. They're going to have to work really hard to make sure that they're an actual tactical FPS where people don't want to die.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be in for a bad time.
Because in some sense, we were just talking about making Arena Commander slightly more similar to the Persistent Universe so that they can share the same kinds of combat balance, right? Because missiles need to be scarce. Otherwise, they're going to be way unbalanced in Arena Commander versus real Persistent Universe missiles. But in Star Marine, we could do a similar thing to make it more similar to the actual Persistent Universe, is that if you die in the Persistent Universe as a avatar, like just as a person outside of a ship, that's like a real death. If your ship blows up in Persistent Universe, theoretically you could be getting out in an escape pod, or maybe it's not a real death, whatever, but getting shot down and having somebody come over and stomp on your face, that's the end right there in the real Persistent Universe. There's a real threat to that. You don't want that to happen. Whereas you're right, in Star Marine it's like, I die, I live again, who cares, there's no consequences. But if you make it more like a Counter-Strike style round-based system where when you die, you're out, there's a new hesitance there to make it more like that. But let's talk about how to make deathmatch more interesting, because Titanfall, not to bring that up, but the original Titanfall and the new one have a mode called Attrition. And one of the ways that they get around the best way to win a game of deathmatch is to camp and shoot the guy as he comes around the corner, is they've added a bunch of NPC grunts that run around, and killing those gets you a point. Killing an enemy player gets you 2 points, but if the enemy players camp somewhere and let you kill all of their grunts, then you're going to lose. It forces players to interact more or less, and that's really what you need in a deathmatch, is just force players to constantly be on the move, hunting down these locations where the enemy grunts are. So
and you're talking about Titanfall 2, you have banks, and those banks become an objective effectively. Not a controlled objective, but they're a thing that you occasionally have to go find. Adding things like that to Deathmatch, where it's like, hey, these consoles are coming online. All of a sudden, it becomes, hey, you have to go fight each other for those consoles to get the resources from that.
Yeah. And Bounty Hunt might as well be deathmatch. The goal is just to kill the other team. It's just got that sub-goal of then banking your money that just adds enough interesting tactical variety and simultaneously makes you go, crap, I have a lot of money stored right now. I do not want to die. I'm going to lose a lot of points for my team if I die. I just have to stay alive. And so you get that really, ratcheting up the tension as you get more and more kills. Like, this is awesome. Oh shit, I have to stop risking myself right now because the banks are going to open in 30 seconds. I just have to get back to a bank and play super careful. That like ratcheting up and then down of the tension, then up again. It's really hard to make that happen unless you're in like a scripted single player environment, but that multiplayer mode does it really well. And I'm not saying that those Titanfall modes would work perfectly in Star Marine. I just hope they find a way to add their own interesting twist on Deathmatch to make it its own unique thing other than just kill everybody or kill the other team.
Yes, I agree. There needs to be something, there needs to be at least an option for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just to see what they can come up with.
Me, if it's just kill the other team / kill everybody, I'm probably just going to be playing the control mode all the time because I just enjoy those a lot more. But that's fine because at the same time, if
they'll need a basic deathmatch.
Yeah, if you
it'll
don't,
need to be there.
And I've played games where they don't have a basic deathmatch, and then you have all the people who just want to play deathmatch shoved in the objective game mode, and then I'm
just
sitting there,
other.
On my team going, it's right there! Just walk over and cap the stupid point! Why are you just sniping from over here? You could walk 3 feet! God damn it! Play deathmatch! Oh, you can't. Damn. So yes.
Move the payload!
Yeah. I mean, TF2, Team Fortress 2, had now always constantly. TF2 is now Team Fortress 2 and Titanfall 2. That's fun. So TF2, Team Fortress 2, did have Deathmatch, which was great because it kept those two different player mindsets separate and prevented a lot of frustration from me because the original Team Fortress and Team Fortress Classic only had the objective-based game modes. It was capture the flag and bring it back, or it was, capture the area, whatever. And man, did it get annoying when you had a sniper just sitting up there the entire game, just sniping, never trying to help defend the flag as it was getting pulled out, even if it would have taken nothing but a sidestep and a melee to kill the guy. Just like, nope, not my job. Like, I don't care.
There's a point where it's just not fun to deal with that kind of player that's shoved into those games.
Right. It's because it's got two people of different utility. One person just wants to, their goal doesn't line up with the goal of the game that they're playing, right? Their goal is just to kill a bunch of people in exactly the type of game that they want is sniping things, right? And in a deathmatch game, that's the goal. Snipe as many things as you want. So when the player and the game both line up with the same goal, that's when you have a good time. When you have, and this is actually what I've heard is the definition for griefing. It's when the player's utility and the game's stated utility are different. So if the player's utility is to make the other people on his team frustrated by shooting them over and over again and team killing them, that obviously doesn't line up with the stated utility of the game, which is capture the enemy flag and bring it back. So that's a form of griefing. But also, if there's a deathmatch queue available, but you join the capture the flag mode and don't help capture or defend your flag, that's a form of griefing. That is. That's how you. I think that's a great definition of what griefing really is. It's when the player has a different definition of utility. Anyway, so we've seen these things here. We talked a little bit about Star Marine. Looting system implemented, so that's theoretically new guns and things you can get.
Finally.
And so are they then going to have a similar system to Arena Commander where you tie guns to your account with rec, similar to the way you do with Arena Commander?
Probably. I'm betting that you'll probably have the ability to choose your spawned loadout. It's just the long and short of that.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, if you just choose that. I would kind of hope that's the case. Because it's one thing that the whole buying ships is their crowdfunding mechanic.
Well,
and so you have access to all the ones you've bought. Plus, if you earn enough rec to buy, a third ship or fourth ship or whatever in Arena Commander, it is what it is. I kind of hope Star Marine is just tries to be like its own class-based thing or its own loadout-based thing, however they want to do it, without having to own every weapon. I don't know. We'll find out. And
also think about the implications of running out of ammo mid-match.
Yeah.
If you're in a deathmatch or a control, I mean, if ammo spawn points aren't common, which is very possible, they're not right now, even in places like Security Post Korea, you might be better served to put your weapon down, pick up the other guy's rifle, with however many bullets are left there, and go. Or just pick up their ammo if they're using the same thing you are. Looting is almost necessary to make that an interesting mechanic. So, yeah. It'll be there.
And actually, in Titanfall, that's a similar thing. There aren't any ammo pickups anywhere. If you run out of ammo, you go over and you kill somebody and you take their gun. And that actually happened to me a couple of times, and I felt proud. Like, yes, I survived long enough to run out of ammo. I'm doing well. So that was good. All right. So anyway, back to Star Citizen because we got another slight preview here of the 3.0 stuff. Again, we saw some of this from the Gamescom roadmap, but it's good to get it sort of restated here. We're going to have trading, cargo transport, piracy and smuggling, mercenaries, and bounty hunters. Those are the main things. So the sort of way that this all fits together is you're going to have some people that are going to try to make money by bringing goods from one place to another, other people that are going to try to take those goods from them, other people that are going to try to hunt down those people after they've taken the goods from them, and other people who get hired by the traders to defend. So that whole dynamic makes sense to be their first level here. It really sort of gives them an economy baseline that everything else, like mining, can bolt onto.
Yeah, and it helps, I think, looking at this, that they're not trying to reinvent the wheel on too many ships. It looks like cargo pallets are going to be in. The magnetic cargo pallets are kind of shown off on a couple of occasions here.
Yeah.
So all they have to do is latch onto the ships that currently exist, and then we're going to have the Caterpillar finally, and the Aquila will be out. They'll be able to focus more heavily just on those mechanics.
And let me
lots of planets.
Let me see here. So then, so I'm definitely excited. This is like a core gameplay loop of the trader, the person defending the trader, the pirate, and the bounty hunter. That's been in many games. It's in EVE Online. It's in Frontiers game that I now. Why am I blanking?
Elite Dangerous.
Elite Dangerous. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's in Elite Dangerous. It's in all those games. So we'll see that. And then we hop on to 3.1, and mining and refining, of course, adds new core gameplay loop where you're trying to make, instead of just the only real way here making money in the Stanton system, like all these games, a stated goal, right? Like EVE Online is to make more money, just like real life. Acquire more goods. So you do this in this one theoretically by bounty hunting against NPC pirates, right? You can make money that way. That's how you can get some money in the system. And once you get some money, you can buy some goods, sell them somewhere else for hire. Pirates can take them and sell them somewhere else. Smugglers can probably smuggle illicit goods and make better money that way.
And they also mention that this would be the first iteration of pseudo salvage. So you could go find a box of cargo in a wreck and sell it to somebody.
So there's your core base economy, but now you're pulling money out of asteroids when you get to mining. So
3-1. Oh yeah.
Here's the thing. They've cleverly added refueling to this, which is important. So in this one, you have some ways of making money, but it doesn't really pull money out of nothing. I guess the bounty hunter can kind of give you credits from killing NPC pirates. But now that they've added a way to just pull money out of the ground, quite literally, they needed a sink for it. So now they've added the ability to, you can pull money out of nothing and just create it now. But now you have to pay to refuel your ship.
You already do. You already have to pay to refuel your ship.
Well, they've added refueling here as 3.1.
Well, that's the mechanic. I think that's the ability to do in-flight refueling.
Oh, in-flight refueling. That's what you're saying. Okay. Well, it's not as clever as I thought. But anyway, they have. You still have to repair your ships and rebuild them, things like that. But now you've got mining and processing, and we get the Cutlass for that purpose. The Misk Hull C, man, yeah, you need that to bring a lot of mining. The Prospector, of course. Why am I blanking? What's the Origin 85X?
85X is the 890 Jumps runabout. It's a little two-seater luxury
okay,
ship.
That's right. I'm like, but why is this being added in that patch? I guess it's because they slotted it in. It's not necessarily needed there, right?
It's a fun little runabout. It gives them the ability to say, hey, here's another small ship you can fly. And since it has to be ready for the 890...
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is what it is. They got to get it done at some point. They wanted to have, we could fit one more ship in here, so there you go. It's got to be done.
Yeah. A little runabout, just let it go. Because the Prospector is going to be small. It's mostly a mechanic thing. This is a big patch.
Big patch here. 3.2, repair and salvage. Because now all the combat that's been happening in the previous versions once the combat is over, maybe there's a loot drop so you can get out and grab a piece of loot from the destroyed ship or something. But salvage and repair is going to be a much more
Now,
in-depth piece to that element.
note what is not in this patch: the big repair ship.
I thought the Reclaimer.
You know what that means?
No, the Reclaimer is the big salvage ship.
It is. So this repair mechanic, in addition to this salvage mechanic, I mean, the Reclaimer, I guess, is going to be the salvage mechanic, but this repair mechanic is going to be a player handheld minigame type thing.
Oh, okay. So it's your little handheld like blowtorch repair kit kind of a thing.
This is going to have to be the first instance of player initiated repair that isn't done by a giant repair system like you see either at the space stations or you see on the big repair ship whose name eludes me right now.
Yeah, it's eluding me as well, but I know the one you're talking about. For some reason, Reclaimer came to mind, but that's
Anvil
the salvage
something or
one.
another.
Anyway, somebody in the chat will know. So we see a lot of, and now this is additional solar system locations. It still hasn't branched out into multiple solar systems. We're still just getting more things here, and I think all of them say that, right? So the Phantom system is completely rolled out in there. Then you've got the additional solar system locations for mining. Theoretically, they're going to add asteroid belts and moons and things that you can mine, and then we get repair and salvage is probably going to have like an entire space station just devoted to salvaging and selling salvage or whatever, and other places like probably places of interest like there was a big ship graveyard where you can go salvage stuff here. And then farming. For some reason, there was a lot of cheering when farming came up at the Citizencon, and it seemed to take Chris aback.
It's the Crucible, by the way. It's the Anvil Crucible. That's the ship.
That's right, the Crucible.
The cheering, by the way, it was not for farming. It was the view of the Banu merchantmen.
Ah, yes, that would do it.
Everyone around me in the crowd was like, "Oh, it's the merchantmen! The merchantmen's coming!"
And it's right there. There's the Banu merchantmen. Interesting. They're adding the Carrack in this one.
Yeah.
Now,
Carrack, the Jump, and the merchantmen. So 3 big ships.
And then the Reliant, a smaller ship, but it's been in the pipeline for less time than those other ones. So it makes sense.
Reliant.
That's the like B-wing shaped one that's like a bomber
so that's
kind of a thing that goes
of the one
vertical.
we already have.
No, that's right. All the other variants is what it's saying here, right? So it's just getting those extras.
It was like the Vanguard variants were in the last.
Right. So we've got that, and so rescue. This is where players can be salvaged. Essentially, they're characters rather than ships. And I'm surprised that they added the Cutlass Blue. Or is it the Cutlass Red? No, blue is the
red and blue.
They're both the rescue one?
Red's rescue, blue is police.
Oh, that's right. So I was surprised they didn't slot the red for the farming and rescue, but that's just what it is. Then we've got 4.0 with jump points, and this is, I think as you mentioned
this is basically beta.
This is once we get this. Yeah, this is probably where we can call the game in beta state at this point. It's now representative more or less with what it's going to be at release. It just doesn't have all the content in yet.
It would be a very early beta. Yeah, there's a Crucible right there. It would be a very early beta just because it would be a small slice of the content that you'd see, only having 2 systems to go between. But it does start to actually hit that level of completion.
And I guess technically,
I would add the only things that are in this patch in 4.0 are exploration and discovery, which means them tuning the sensor suites
and providing things for exploration and discovery.
Well, yes, but science and research, which is also tuning the sensor suites. So from a ship perspective, they're basically creating mini games for this patch, and then they're creating whatever you try to find with those mini games in the universe itself.
So the science and research, are they referring to like the people that, here's an engine, I want to try to make it, tweak this engine to make it have a higher top speed or something, and then they have to play a mini game of some kind to try and increase the thing, and if they overdo it, if they fail, then it scraps the engine, they have to try again, that kind of system, because I described that system in the past. Do you think that's what they're referring to here when they say research?
I don't know. There's a part of me that wonders if this is actually going to be like tearing apart scanner logs and saying like, I've discovered some sort of new jump point piece, and that's what research ends up meaning is like you learn something about the physics of whatever the thing is you're scanning.
I mean, I would love to see, and I don't know if this is what they're planning for this, but I would love to see, when I think research and science, the first thing that comes to mind is EVE Online, where your character's like researching new blueprints to make and things like that. But
Oh yeah.
I don't know. They don't seem to be going that route in Star Citizen, like the route of, oh, your character has to learn how to do something before you can do it. They want as many things as possible to be player skill related. But I would be really interested to see if everything new that gets added to the game has to be found and figured out by players. Like if a new ship's being added to the game, or not a new ship, I guess ships is a bad example, but if a new weapon's being added to the game, it's added hidden secretly in a patch and somebody has to find the blueprint somewhere and then start making it before it can start showing up. I mean, that's one way to do it. They could also just have another gun show up in the store, because Anvil puts out a new gun, or Barrett or whatever, the various companies they have. I mean, they've already got that as an option. So we'll see. But you know what I noticed here? I noticed that in none of these do they list freelancer variants. What happened to my freelancer Miz? Where is it? It's missing in action.
That's a good question. They've said that this wasn't an exhaustive list.
I know it's not an exhaustive list. You're right. Maybe it's just planned for whenever it is planned for.
If I had to take a wild guess, they probably will have the max in relatively quickly as a surprise, because the max is basically just a freelancer with a bigger hull.
Hell, they might even plan to have 3.5 is like a mid patch, or 3.05 or something, where we've got trading and cargo transport, but now we add the max to that. Here you go,
Well, and you've got like the Miss. It's a heavy combat ship. They'll put that in when they're comfortable enough with missile combat to do it.
You're right. That probably doesn't belong in there just yet until they get that balance right.
And then the Dur, I'll bet that's probably somewhere up in the exploration range.
Yeah, jump point period we might see. But, I don't blame them for not just putting every ship they want in all of these things. They probably limited themselves on these slides just for like, what's our top ships we want to get in this patch? And if we can get these other ones that we want,
And note that the Crucible is put in after they've already become comfortable with how the repair system works.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense too. It shows some sort of forethought on their part there. And now here is my speculation. You ready for this? I think we're gonna get 3.0, the Stanton system. I think this is gonna be February. We're going to see this in February. I mean, we know they were trying to aim for the end of the year and that they're going to miss it, probably. I'm going to say February just to be safe. I think it's also possible we see it in January, but I'm going to tag an extra month to every single one of these speculations because reasons. Then I think June for mining and refining. This is a pretty significant system, and even if they have some of this already sort of in super early alpha testing in the back where we haven't seen any of it, it's still going to take a long time to really get it integrated. It's a lot of stuff here. I think June is a good estimation.
It's going to depend on what the mining mechanics and refining and processing start off as. It's very possible that they could just say, this is going to be a lot like WoW mineral deposits.
Yeah, I hope not.
To start, they might just force you to go run into an area and go
point a laser at a rock and just get stuff.
That could be 1.0. Is you put a laser at a rock and you just start with that.
I hope not. I hope that's not the case. I agree that that's certainly possible, but I feel like they said they've sort of learned from releasing big mechanics too early since they did it with Arena Commander. Like they felt disappointed with the reception because they were disappointed with how unpolished Arena Commander was when it came out in 0.8. And I hope they sort of take that lesson and polish these up a little bit before revealing them. That seems to have been the trend that they've taken. I mean, we didn't see Star Marine yet. They probably could have released it any time within the last 6 months, but they are having polish issues. It's probably playable, just not as fun. Yeah.
They want the animations not to clip through things. They want people's arms not to flip backwards and fly in circles.
Yeah.
I think the idea of polish when we come to mining, though, comes down to, do they want us to have the whole mini game of scanning for the material inside the rock? Um, how do they deal with deforming terrain? Or they probably won't, honestly. They're probably just going to leave that off of the first thing, but maybe spawning in asteroids that you can destroy and then suck things out of there.
Yeah, I'm just so for the purposes of my guessing here, I'm basing the idea of that design document they had for the mining and refining a while
Oh
ago, where
yeah,
you have to have like for the big ships that are doing the mining, like the Prospector, where you have like you have a guy who's got
yeah.
the laser who's trying to aim for the hotspots. You got somebody else that's scanning and trying to tell him what to avoid, and you got somebody else doing this other thing and moving the
The
ship.
Orion.
Oh, is that the Orion? Is that what I'm thinking? Yeah, that's right. The Prospector is like the
Yeah,
one
the
seater. I'm
Prospector is the
sorry.
one seater from Mist. The Orion
I
is
was
until
thinking
like
about the Orion.
4.0.
You're right. So maybe the Prospector is less involved and we'll see that sooner. But I'm going to say June anyway, just because these things
Yeah.
always get delayed. So May, June for 3.1. Then I think maybe, what did I put here? October, I'm thinking, for 3.2. Salvage repair is not a lot, but I'm going to say, just again, I'm adding an extra month onto what my actual prediction would be. I'm saying, September, October for 3.2. And then Farming and Rescue doesn't have a huge amount. I think that could come out by December. And then I think 4.0 is sometime in 2018. So we're right on track to get Star Citizen released by 2020. And it will have been in development
Yeah.
for 8 years, which, to be honest, is not a huge increase over other massive MMOs, which are 5 or 6 year development times.
Yeah. And I think maybe we'll see faster than what you're saying.
Certainly, I'm going with a worst case scenario here.
I'm
That's what I'm looking
I
at.
would estimate actually that we see 3.0 in Evocati hands by the end of the year.
That I would agree with. I think it'll definitely maybe
I
hit the Evocati by then.
I don't think we'll know. Maybe somebody will leak, and that would suck. But I think the likelihood is that they'll try to get something testing quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
All right. So anyway, the last couple of minutes here I wanted to spend. We only have about 5-10 minutes left in the planned length of the show. So they did do a Procedural Planets V2 demo that was kind of similar to the first one, obviously with the improved technology that they have for the planets. So
The toolkit was amazing.
the toolkit at the end was really cool looking. I was damn surprised how quickly they could build a little unique location with that. The guy was in there, and in the course of like 5 minutes, he had like a little lake, and he had some rocks that didn't look like he just copy pasted them, because he copy pasted them and then turned them sideways a little bit, and then he put the little creatures and made different size ones, and he put a thing on the a little antenna on the side of the thing, and the system just like blended them all together like they were supposed to be there, and they weren't just like shoved into the mountain. It was amazing how well that system took care of that. And then the trees just plopped them down in bunches, and they were all different and random and looked great. Like it looked like they were all hand placed, instead of the fact that like there weren't any that were like twisted sideways or something weird.
See, and seeing this is why I think that maybe the estimates could be much faster than what you were saying earlier. Because seeing the majority of their content is coming, I mean, the created content they're having to deal with, not the stuff they have to balance, is coming through the pipe either of this system or of the ship pipeline. And I think both of those are exceptionally fast now. The networking code, that's going to be the blocker on 3.0, I think. That'll be the thing that's really, really painful for 3.0 to finish out, and for 4.0 when they have to go from system to system.
Yeah, and there are certainly reasons to suspect that it will get faster over time, in the sense that the major blockers are holding up multiple different systems. Like you can't do this or this until the first person animations and third person animation things is figured out. And when you fix that bug, you unblock a bunch of different things simultaneously, and that bug doesn't have to be fixed again on the alternate tracks of things being worked on. So I definitely can see sort of, and we've talked about how we're seeing some sort of slight exponential expansion in terms of what is appearing at a given time.
I think that exponential expansion will continue because of what we've seen on this 2.0 demo. This was really exciting to me as a software developer to see that their toolkit is now to a point where they can say, now we're just going to make stuff.
Yeah.
Now we're beyond the point of having to worry about, does this technology work? Now we're just going to make stuff.
Yeah, and the fact that they came up with the whole demo for the V2 with the sandworm and the crash javelin and like the little interactions they had. Obviously, it was a little rough. The AI were shooting at like points in the ground instead of at the player. But
Yeah.
man, this is impressive with the trees. They're just plopping them in there and they look great.
Well, and they've said that we probably won't see any lush planets. Well, we know we won't see any lush planets for the early 3 point whatever phases. We're going to see really barren, ugly worlds just because of what it is, with some pretty crafted locations on them, like, Microtech having its lush looking little underdomes.
And that makes sense. I mean, they're going to need to. They've got the tech now for the barren planet. Everything you add onto it is going to require more tech. I mean, even though some of the planets had their biomes with trees and stuff that they were showing us, but I don't know if those trees were added by artists or if that was procedurally generated as well.
Yep. What? Sorry, what? What art?
They when they did the fly around earlier in this thing, I'll see if I can find it. Or maybe at the very beginning, they were showing like various biomes, right? We flew over one with mountains and snow, and then we flew over a desert, and then we flew over an area with a bunch of trees. And so I was wondering if
biomes
those trees...
they're procedural.
They are procedural, so the trees would be procedurally added to that.
They've said that basically the biome system is a procedural system, and it's a matter of choosing how they attach to each other and what's in them and that kind of thing there. There's been a few things in the update notes. I think around Reverse the Verse had something about that this week. With this idea that there is there's a variety of stuff that they can do with biomes that allows them to just seamlessly transition automatically when they create the planet.
Yeah, and that's key. Where these things meet, as long as it's not jarring, you can do so much with it.
Yes. And I think that they're doing a pretty solid job of that now, but they're being perfectionists about it. There will be more progression on that.
Yep, it was damn impressive, the V2 planetary thing. I mean, especially when you compare it, I just hate to do it every time, but you compare it to the disappointing No Man's Sky, and to be fair, it basically is the same result, right? It's
No Man's Sky has no biome at all.
It's just a single planet biome. It's like every Star Wars planet. It's either frozen planet or it's a desert planet. George Lucas
there are no desert planets in No Man's Sky. They removed those.
Oh, okay. So my point is, this is essentially kind of like No Man's Sky in the sense that if you were exploring this, it would be boring, right? Because there's nothing here yet. They've handcrafted the few encounters that we've seen. So my final question before we log off for the night: how long does it take them to handcraft a little quest line like we saw in the procedural demo, where you get a distress signal, you land, you get a contrived thing telling us you have to get out of your ship, and you go over land to discover this little thing. Oh, there's a crashed thing. Let's see where this leads. How long does it take them to make that? Because they're going to need hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of those.
Right now, it's going to take them days longer than it would when the AI system is set up to work fully. Because right now, their AI doesn't have full subsumption logic on.
So you're saying normally they should just be able to plop a guy in and say, you're hostile to the player when he shows up, etc.
Not even necessarily you're hostile to the player. Here's your priority set. You want to guard this object, and you don't want people to come into this area, and you're also interested in seeing what's over here.
Yeah. Rather than coding that all manually, once you have the subsumption AI in, it can, on the fly, read those basic goals cues and generate AI responses based on those goals.
Exactly. And right now, they very clearly had to say, okay, you NPC stand here and be turned this direction 90 degrees and done.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be the case for the majority of missions you run into.
I could definitely see that being the case. Definitely. All right. Any final comments from the man who was there, Gray?
I was impressed to see the whole thing. Honestly, I'm very, very excited about the toolkit. I'm even more excited about the roadmap. It's about time that we saw something like that.
All right. I
And in
guess.
all honesty, I think the folks that were most pissed off about this need to chill out a little bit. What was that topic? Don't be the publisher.
That's right. That was a great. I don't remember if we talked about that on the last show or not. But there was a great
Yeah.
thread on Reddit that was describing all of the things a publisher does to a game. Like they demand to see progress reports that are faster than the developer can deliver, and they demand to see, the developer spend their time hitting specific milestones and releasing stuff even when it's not ready to be released. And then they're like, don't be this guy. It was a pretty
don't
great
be
little
that person.
twisty post there. I definitely approve of that. All right, so I guess with that, we will sign off for the night here, people. Thank you for tuning in to another Tales of Citizen show, episode number 44. Again, we are here recording live every Sunday at 7 Eastern Time normally. No, sorry. The last
Sunday of the month.
Yes, that's what I mean to say. We've been consistent on that for a while. We haven't had to take a hiatus. That's actually fit into my schedule. And Chris Roberts' schedule as well, because they release about a show's worth of news in a month. So as that speeds up, we'll speed up our show's progression as well. So thanks for watching, guys. This is Bridger and Gray signing off until next month. All right. We don't have any post-game show because I know you've got to get going.
Yep, I got a playoff game to get to. But thanks for moving a little earlier. Appreciate that.
Yep, no problem. And we'll get this up on the... Oh, man, I keep forgetting about this, getting the podcast feed up. I feel so bad. Last month, I got it out on time. I'm going to try to get it back again. I just... this has been like the most busy time at work. And normally I just bring it with me to work and just edit down the MP3 and upload it and add the description and all the stuff to the podcast feed. It only takes about 15 or 20 minutes, but if I don't have that 15 or 20 minutes at work and then I forget and then I'm at home and I forget again. So anyway, we're going to get it done tomorrow. I'm going to make sure that happens. It's slowing down at work now. I can do it again. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in a month.
Have a good night.